So there is a big discrepancy, at least in Texas. I watch the San Angelo markets with respect to hair sheep prices versus wool sheep. For example, this week it's $1 a pound. We're looking at $2 a pound versus $3 a pound. What, in your opinion, is the reason behind these differences?
One thing is we typically think of lambs and sheep as being wool breeds. So we're shearing those every year. We're producing wool, selling wool in the wool market. Yet, that has changed a lot too, and a lot of pressures due to the difficulty in finding folks to shear the sheep. So we have this kind of labor roadblock there to getting the sheep shorn. Cost of doing that relative to the value of wool has changed as well. There's been a lot of years that the wool value didn't cover the costs of shearing. And there's a whole set of things going on the wool side over the last number of decades. The rise of man-made fiber, really replacing wool in some respects. So then we have all of a sudden the rise of hair sheep breeds. So we don't have to shear them. The hair sort of is there and it falls off. We've eliminated that part of it, which, in many years past was really a profit center on the farm, and it is not so much that way, particularly for coarser wools. So we've converted a lot of Texas's sheep production, lamb production, to hair sheep breeds. So, that's sort of on the supply side of it. On the kind of consumer demand side, we talk a lot in lamb consumption about what we might call an ethnic market. So traditionally, those lambs from those wool breeds, many times they would go to a feedlot. We'd put on a few more pounds, and then they would go to a meat packer and enter kind of lamb consumption. In this case, many of the hair sheep lambs are sold at lighter weights. They don't go to a feedlot necessarily. And so it's kind of fitting in total lamb consumption in a little different way. We do have more influence of holidays, particularly Muslim holidays in lamb trade. And so those lambs are smaller. They may fit the size for a family better than the traditional going to a feedlot lamb. They're smaller. So we have this changing market. We still have the fed lambs, bigger wool breed finished lambs that fit part of our market, yet we also have these smaller hair sheep lambs that fit a more local kind of market.
Kind of to hone in on that, each class sort of being reflective of demand in a sense. The hair sheep breeds fitting that ethnic niche well because of their size. And then on the contrary, the wool sheep breeds, again, filling the consumer demand niche, again, because of their larger size. Is that an accurate sort of summation of what you just said?
Yeah, I think so. They're kind of filling different market segments, if you will. And if we look back prior to this year over time, we see sometimes those feeder lambs, which really implies that traditional wool breed that's going to go to a feedlot. And it's a 70 to 90 pound sort of lamb in that category. And so that's one market. And then the rest is, the hair sheep, the smaller lambs. So we're often talking about those being 40 to 50 to 60 pounds. Lately, we've had a rebound in lamb prices, particularly for those hair sheep versus that traditional feeder lamb. They're all lambs. What we've got going on is really a big collapse in lamb prices earlier this year, from the record highs of last year. It's a little longer story in that, I would argue lamb really benefited in the pandemic. People were at home, or lots of people were at home. They would go to the store. They tried different things. People ate more lamb. So we saw this real surge in prices based on boost in consumer demand. Now that we've gotten past that, come back to maybe more normal. We have a lot of lambs in feedlots that were bought and put in feedlot at really high prices. Yet now what they can get for those finished lambs has really collapsed, in some cases more than half. Those meat packers are looking at where can they sell that lamb. And if that retail consumer demand has backed off, they don't have a market for all of that. Yet those lambs are still in a feedlot eating, getting bigger, getting fatter, over-finished, and getting older. And that means something in a lamb market, So we've been kind of caught in this sort of wreck in this market as consumer demand has backed off. So We see a market price at San Angelo for those wooled lambs that we call a feeder lamb. Nobody wants to buy them to put them on feed. Yet we have these smaller hair sheep that fits this non-traditional market. The hair sheep lamb prices have bounced back. Yet those traditional feeder lamb category has not yet, because of this sort of log jam in that marketing channel. I think one of the interesting things to remember is really all of those lambs could go to a non-traditional or ethnic market. It's just that those wool breed lambs are bigger.
Yeah. If you enjoyed this video, please watch this one next, where I talk about why Dorper sheep.